Please figure your hand out. Guide for the interview process. Please repeat after me. Tell about the rising. How noted and what known. Tell about the falling. How noted and what known. Report all thinking planning. How noted and what known. Report all feelings. How noted and what known. Report all dhammas that arise. How noted and what known. Object noting what is known. These 3 points are key. Include these 3 precisely, clearly. For each object seen. Don't add fluff. Just say the first short and to the point. Be free, no extra, just the essence. In rewarding, use time carefully. Let us recite again all together. Tell about the rising, all needed and what known. Tell about the falling, all noted and what known. Report all thinking, planning, all noted and what known. Report all feelings, all noted and what known. Report all dhammas that arise, all noted and what known. Object noting what's known. These 3 points are key. Includes these 3 precisely, clearly, for each object seen. Don't add fluff, just say the short and to the point. Be free, no etc. Just the essence. Everybody use time carefully. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Today, I will continue the talk regarding impermanent nature of the 5 aggregates. According to this teaching, everything in the world is conditioned. So if you know only that 3 are there are conditions, and that there are those conditions bind those conditions, it is enough to say that you virtually understand dependent origination. This information is from the text, commentaries, and sub-commentaries. For those who have no knowledge of the text and commentaries, but who have some ability to think, let us now consider the following. 2 months after his enlightenment, the Buddha gave his first sermon to the group of 5 disciples. Do you think they already knew about such things as the Four Noble Truths, the aggregates basis on dependent origination. Can you say that they knew Abhidhamma from previous knowledge? Some people might say that, oh, they had accumulated a lot of parami and many experiences in the past. They were special. They were a gifted person. So when they heard the Buddha's sermon, all of that information might already have been in them. But Sayadaw Usilananda's thought that they definitely did not possess any such knowledge. These discoveries of the Buddha world are known to any other human being, and he gave the 5 disciples his first sermon at 80%. So the disciples who had no prior knowledge of the aggregates, dependent origination, and so forth, learned by listening to the Buddha's first sermon. As a result of listening, all of them became Sotapanna and a little later Arahants. We can find many such examples in the text as well as in the commentaries. Let us take just one more example. Whenever Sariputta was not yet a Buddhist, when he met the Venerable Asaji, at that time he belonged to the set of another teacher and knew very little about the Buddha's teachings, but impressed by the demeanor of Venerable Asaji, he asked the Venerable to teach him something of the Dhamma. Venerable Asaji uttered and instructed a verse of 4 lines. 4 lines. Idama hido bhavavam, dita hido tathagado, ahati sancha yo niroro, duvanwadi mahasamano. In Bali, the verse for 4 lines. And it is said that after listening to just the first 2 lines of the verse, Sariputta became a Sotapanna, and not long afterward a disciple of the Buddha. As Sariputta was the most gifted person after the Buddha, it was not difficult for him to get this knowledge the moment he received the teaching from the Venerable Asaji. We, however, are not so gifted as the 5 disciples of the Venerable Sariputta. And we are here more than 2,500 years after the Buddhas. So, Sayadaw Usilananda thought we should be allowed some concessions. You should know something about the teachings of the Buddha, but not very much. If you know that there are 5 aggregates, that they are impermanent, suffering, and non-self. And that there are four noble truths. If you have heard, read, or already know those things, I think you can practice Vipassana meditation. Knowledge of the aggregate is very helpful because you can verify your practice with what you already know. When you practice meditation, you experience many things and sometimes you don't know what they are. But if you have some knowledge of all the aggregates, you will know what is happening to you and what you are experiencing. Then you will be like a person who has read a map before going somewhere. When he is there, he knows where he is and where to go. Also, since you are practicing under the guidance of the teacher, I think it is enough if you have just a little bit of information about the teachings of the Buddha. Your teachers can give you enough information about the five aggregates, Nama and Rupa, and so forth. So it is all right for you to practice Vipassana meditation. Even if you have not read the Visuddhimagga, even if you know, even if you do not know Abhidhamma, your teachers will supplying you with this kind of knowledge and whatever else is necessary to know. I'm not saying this to discourage you from studying the Buddha's teaching. It is good to study them. It is good to know what the Buddha thought. If you are bent on practice, and when you to know that it is possible for you to practice right now, even without detailed knowledge of the teachers of the Buddha. But if you want to share your knowledge with other people, if you hope to be a teacher in the future, or if you are a teacher now, then certainly you will need to acquire wide knowledge of the Buddha's teachings. Now we will return to the answer given by the Venerable Sariputta when he said that a virtuous bhikkhu and an instructed bhikkhu that should carefully attend to the five aggregates subject to clinging, which are impermanent, suffering, a disease, non-self. The commentary says that we should know three things regarding impermanence. Number one, what is it that is impermanent? We say impermanent, impermanent. But what is it that we say is impermanent? Number two, what are the signs or what are the marks of being impermanent? We should know the characteristics, marks or signs of impermanence. Last one, what is repeated seeing of impermanence? What is it that is impermanent? When we say impermanent, what do we mean by that? You already know the answer. The 5 aggregates are impermanent and are taught by the Buddhas as impermanence. You have yet to see that this is true, but through practice of vipassana meditation, it will eventually be seen. So, what is it that is impermanent? The answer is all 5 aggregates, not just the 5 aggregates of clinging. There is a difference between aggregates and aggregates of clinging. When we say aggregates of clinging, we mean only the mundane aggregates. But when we say aggregates, the supramundane aggregates are also included. So both mundane and supramundane aggregates are impermanent. Lokiya and Lokottara. But consciousness belongs to the supramundane aggregate. It also belongs to the consciousness aggregates and to the supramundane level. But consciousness arises and disappears immediately, to be followed by fruition consciousness, which again disappears immediately. So the types of consciousness that are included in the supramundane aggregates are also impermanent. When we speak of impermanence, we mean that everything in the world is impermanent. But in the language of the Buddhist books, we say the 5 aggregates instead of everything in the world. Why do we say that? Do we say that 5 aggregates are impermanent? There must be signs or characteristics that point to their impermanence. These signs are like flash by which we understand that the 5 aggregates are impermanent. I think you all know that those characteristics. According to the Visuddhimagga, rise, fall, and change are the characteristics of impermanence. First, there is a rising. Then there is what is called change, becoming different or aging. Then there is falling, disappearing. In watching the aggregates, we see that they arise and last for a few brief moments and then disappear. When we see that they constantly arise, change, and disappear, we know from these characteristics or signs that the aggregates are impermanent. And we know that the characteristics or impermanence are rise, fall, and change. You may be familiar with the 3 stages of existence: arising, staying for a time, and then disappearing. They are known as the 3 sub-moments of one thought moment. Obada, Titi, Benga, and Pali. When we see a state of mind arise, stay for a time, and then disappear, we know that this state is impermanent. This knowing or seeing that something is impermanent must come from your own experience. It must not come from a book. It must not come from a teacher. It must come from within yourself. So do not be specifying what you read in books or hear in talks. You must see for yourself. In order to see impermanence as Venerable Sariputta did, practice is necessary. You need to do something to prove to yourself that things are really impermanent. So, what should you do? It is actually very simple. You should watch things, including the mind. Just watch them, and you cannot fail to see that they arise and disappear. When practicing vipassana meditation, sometimes you are making notes of your mind. Your mind wanders, and you note wandering. Until it is finished, then you come back to the whole object or primary object, rising and falling. So through your own experience, you see for yourself that thought it is impermanent because it arises, stays for a few short time, and then disappears. The impermanence of the five aggregates, the impermanence of mind and matter can be seen for yourself through the practice of vipassana meditation. Having seen the impermanence of things for yourself, there is no need to go by faith and blindly accept the statements of other people regarding the impermanence of the five aggregates. You yourself will be able to verify that it is true. If you practice and pay close attention to objects appearing at the present moment, you cannot fail to see impermanence. It is very encouraging when, through your own experience, you can discover the secret of mind and matter as taught by the Buddha. That is what is called Sandetika in Pali, an attribute of the Dhamma, meaning that things are to be seen by oneself and not just heard second hand from another person. The commentary describes this quite listed in another way, although it means the same thing. It says that non-existence after having been is the characteristic of impermanence. Book language is different from everyday language, and sometimes it is used to impress other people. So when I say non-existence after having been is the characteristic of impermanence, you may be wondering what I am saying. If you want to impress people, use the language of the books, but it may not serve the purpose. We want people to understand rather than to admire our knowledge of books. So whatever we want to say should be put in a way that everybody will understand. disappearing after arising is the characteristic of impermanence. Impermanence. Otawa, abhavado, nature, lakanam, nature. All these Yarobiaji says, Shibobi, Kwebia, Toraga, Nesa, lakana, Pami language. Disappearing after arising is the characteristics of impermanence. Now you understand Sayadaw sentence very easily. If you want to know whether a certain state is permanent or impermanent, see if it disappears after arising. It is more important to see the disappearing than the arising. That is because if you see only the arising and not the disappearing, you may have the opposite understanding and think the state is permanent. So it is important to see the disappearing. However, disappearing is preceded by arising. When there is no arising, there can be no disappearing. So the two go together, arising and disappearing. When you see a state arise and disappear, you know that it is impermanent. So disappearing after arising is the characteristic mark or sign of impermanence. The third question to be considered is, what is a repeated seeing of impermanence? This is described as a contemplation of impermanence. A nature nupassana in Pali. You already know the word nature as impermanent. The word nupassana is made up of a nu meaning again and again. And pasana, you are familiar with the word pasana, as it occurs in vipassana, it means seeing. So anupassana means seeing again and again, repeated seeing or repeated observation, but it is popularly translated as contemplation. When nature anupassana is translated as contemplation, we may think that it means just thinking about impermanence, but that is not really seeing it. We can force ourselves to seem to understand by seeing impermanent, impermanent, impermanent. But that is not real understanding of impermanence either. We must be careful not to deceive ourselves with false assumptions. Sometimes people say, oh, this is impermanent. This is impermanence, and think that they really know the impermanence of something. Actually, what they are doing is just repeating, Sayadaw said, like a parrot. Parrots. The real impermanence that we need to see in order to gain vipassana knowledgement is the moment-to-moment impermanence. The other kinds of superficial impermanence can be understood without meditation. For example, you drop a glass and it breaks, and you say it is impermanent. You don't need meditation to understand that kinds of impermanence. You just know it. Or when somebody dies and you say, oh, he is impermanent. That kind of understanding is not called vipassana knowledge. It cannot lead to dysfunction toward the 5 aggregates. Without dysfunction toward the 5 aggregates, there can be no fading away of mental defilements and no attainment of enlightenment. Superficial understanding of the impermanence cannot help us to be dispassionate toward the aggregates or disenchanted with the mind and matter. It will not lead to enlightenment. This kind of understanding cannot help us. So it is very important to cultivate and gain the deeper understanding of the real impermanence, not the superficial kind. A nature nupassana, as mentioned earlier, is the repeated seeing of impermanence while observing the rise and fall of the aggregates. It is not understanding just by thinking or without observing the 5 aggregates. If it is real nature nupassana, it must be the seeing of impermanence when you are in the process of watching the rise and fall of the aggregates during vipassana meditation. If you are not practicing, there can be no nature nupassana. You may have had real experiences of a nature nupassana during the practice of vipassana. But when you are out of practice, there is no nature nupassana. There can be only the remembrance or memory of a nature nupassana. There are 3 characteristics of phenomenal existence: a nature, impermanence, dukkha, suffering, and another no soul. It is said that even when there is no Buddha in the world, impermanence and suffering can be thought, but nobody except a Buddha can teach non-self. But there is a statement of the Buddha himself in one of the texts, which says that when one characteristic is sin, the other 2 are also sin. This means that if you see impermanence, you also see suffering nature and non-self nature. However, it is said that another can be thought by Buddhas only. So when there are no Buddhas, can you really get a nature nupassana? The sub-commentary makes that statement and says that the kinds of impermanence thought of when there is no Buddha must just be superficial impermanence, not real moment-to-moment impermanence. Because if you see moment-to-moment impermanence when there is no Buddha, you also will see the non-self nature without the Buddha. So the sub-commentary says that even the impermanence and suffering have to be thought during the time when there is no Buddha, must be just a superficial and nature and superficial dukkha, not the real nature and dukkha that we see through vipassana meditation. Now, I would like to talk about the characteristics of suffering dukkha in Pali. Khanda, nature, another is dukkha. Now it's dukkha. The 5 aggregates are called dukkha, suffering, because they are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. This is one of 3 reasons given in the commentaries. The second reason the aggregates are called dukkha is because they are the basis of suffering. They are the seeds of suffering. And the third reason is because there are 5 aggregates. There is suffering. And as we ourselves are 5 aggregates, we suffer. We suffer a lot because of the 5 aggregates. We see something we don't want to see, and we suffer. We hear something we don't want to hear, and there is a suffering. We don't want to be sad or depressed, but we do get sad and depressed, and we suffer. Because of these 5 aggregates, we have to endure all of these sufferings. If there were no 5 aggregates, there would be no suffering, but because we are 5 aggregates, there will be aging, disease, and death, and so we suffer. We encounter all of this misery simply because of the 5 aggregates. Therefore, they are called dukkha, suffering, because they are the basis of suffering. In this sense, the 5 aggregates of clinging are also called dukkha. The third reason given is that they are called dukkha because they are fearsome. They are fearful. They are dreadful. Because of these 5 aggregates, we undergo the constant suffering. So they are fearful because they bring aging, disease, death, and other kinds of suffering. They are called dukkha. We must practice meditation in order to see and understand that the 5 aggregates are dukkha or suffering. And they are called suffering for 3 reasons. They are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. They are the basis of suffering, and they are fearsome. In order to include other meanings of suffering, nowadays, dukkha is translated as unsatisfactory rather than suffering. Anything that is impermanent is unsatisfactory. We want things to be permanent. We want ourselves to be permanent. We want to live permanently, but we will not get with what we want. And because there is no satisfaction with these 5 aggregates, they are unsatisfactory. We need to understand three things. What is it that is dukkha? What is the characteristics of dukkha? And what is dukkha nupassana or seeing dukkha? What is it that is dukkha? When we say dukkha, we mean the 5 aggregates which are also impermanent in nature. These same 5 aggregates that are impermanent also are also dukkha or suffering. What is the characteristic mark or sign of being dukkha? We see that the 5 aggregates which comprise everything in the world are oppressed constantly by a rising fall. So the characteristic of dukkha is this constant oppression by rise and fall, which is continuous and never stops. There is not a single moment in our lives when we are not oppressed by rise and fall. And what is dukkha nupassana, or repeated seeing of the dukkha? This means watching and noting the 5 aggregates during vipassana meditation and seeing with your own eyes the continuous operation by rise and fall. Dukkha nupassana is the understanding or knowledge you get from this observation of the 5 aggregates. Only when you observe the 5 aggregates and see them continuously oppressed by rise and fall can this vipassana knowledge be gained and made your own. This knowledge, the understanding that the 5 aggregates are dukkha, can only be attained when you are actively engaged in practicing vipassana meditation. There is no other way to see the rise and fall of the aggregates. Only when you are practicing vipassana and watching them as they rise and fall at the present moment, where you be convinced of their continuous operation, and you will know that they are dukkha. This kind of knowledge is called dukkha nupassana, and is the real seeing of dukkha. Real seeing of dukkha. The Venerable Sariputta said that a virtuous and instructed bhikkhu should carefully attempt to the 5 aggregates subject to clinging in order to see and understand them as a suffering. This means that the bhikkhu must practice vipassana meditation. Here, there are 2 kinds of suffering: superficial and real suffering. Superficial suffering does not need the practice of vipassana meditation in order to be understood. You cut your finger and then say, oh, it is dukkha. Or you hit your knee against something and say it is dukkha. This kind of understanding is superficial. Superficial. The nature of the dukkha is not really seen. You experience the unpleasant feeling involved and then see it as suffering. You just feel it and know it. Meditation is not needed to understand it. What we are concerned with here is real suffering. The deep understanding of the real suffering, dukkha. The commentary says that we must understand three things. Number one, what is it that is dukkha? Number two, what is the characteristics of dukkha? Three, what is dukkha nupassana, the seeing of dukkha? What is it that is dukkha? This is easy to answer. Again, the five aggregates, they are called dukkha or suffering. When we say suffering, we mean both the five aggregates and the five aggregates of clinging. So it includes all of them. And what is the characteristics of dukkha? You must understand the meaning of the word dukkha correctly. Normally it means suffering, unpleasant feeling, but its meaning goes deeper than that. You must understand it according to the words of the Buddha. Whatever is impermanent is dukkha. Whatever is impermanent is suffering. This we need to understand. The Buddha did not say that whatever is difficult to endure is suffering or anything like that. He said that whatever is impermanent is suffering. If you know something to be impermanent, you also know that it is suffering. Therefore, the meaning of the word suffering goes deeper than the surface meaning. We have to go deeply into it in order to understand it. You must remember the saying of the Buddha that whatever is impermanent is suffering. If you want to know whether something is suffering, see if it is permanent or impermanent. If it is impermanent, you will know that it is a dukkha. Don't be afraid to say it is a dukkha. Okay, we have to stop our discourse for today. Continue to next time. May you be able to note the five aggregates of grasping whenever they arise at the six sense doors. May you realize their impermanence, suffering, and not-self nature. May you make the swift progress in your insight and realize nirvana, the error of sufferings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.